Hey everyone, André here along with Paul Gale, who joined me at Super Nintendo World on the opening media days, and oh my god, we got so much to say, and we are starting off with our official review of Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. This is the big new ride at Super Nintendo World Hollywood, the only ride really, though there is plenty more to do there, don't worry, we'll be covering that in a separate video, but for right now I want to focus on the big main attraction, again being Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. Let's start off with you, Paul. What did you think of this ride overall?
Overall, I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Beautiful to look at, fun to play in. The build up to the ride, a lot of fun in that queue, gorgeous, atmospheric, and yeah, more deep impressions on the ride itself soon, but I had a wonderful time as a lifelong Nintendo fan playing in it and being there.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome to hear. And you mentioned the key word there, playing in it, because that is a key thing about this ride. And I think what made my ride almost more of a roller coaster, even though this isn't at all a roller coaster. Because when I first went on it, I don't think I even knew what to expect. But it wasn't what we got, and I was a little let down initially. But then I wanted to keep going on it, and the more I rode it, the more I was having a blast. So I think overall, by the end, by my fifth ride, I was having a really good time on this thing. And I think once you understand what the ride is, which is really less of a high-speed thrill ride, because it's definitely not that fast. It's more of like the best-in-class kind of shooting gallery type game or type ride we've seen. So if you think kind of like Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin or Toy Story Midway Mania, it's kind of like that on steroids. It's that shooting concept combined with a faster-paced dark ride. So yeah, so I think once I understood what the ride is, which is really a really cool shooting gallery type thing, I was having a lot of fun. But I think one of the coolest things about this ride though, Paul, is how it makes use of AR. This is the key thing for how this ride actually works. But it's done something I've seen no other ride do, where you have to wear this physical visor, which then projects these virtual elements onto these very physical, otherwise physical sets, where like say you'll come across a piranha plant, you'll see this physical piranha plant, like an actual animatronic, shoot a virtual fireball at you, and the way it all merges together is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, because it's doing things no other ride has been able to, where it feels authentic and real, including like elements that just literally couldn't exist otherwise. And this is how you also see the other Mario Kart racers that race alongside you. Like you'll see Mario and Peach and Bowser, and they all exist in this virtual space, and they like race alongside you, which is really cool. Even if it's not quite perfect yet. But what did you think of the technology?
Great technology. I'll give a little bit of a nod to Nintendo Labo VR. Do you remember the game where you're flying through the air and you're touching this piece of cardboard contraption on the floor and it's blowing wind at your face?
Yeah, the wind pedal. Yeah. I love that thing.
So I think this is that, but like times 10, and it works really well. Like when we were going in the Mario Kart ride, and we were entering the clouds, for instance, you have these very large physical constructs of these balls of clouds that look all fluffy and whatnot. Then you have a digital screen of the character from, I believe, Super Mario 3D World blowing air at you. You have physical air actually hitting you. Through your AR goggles, you have lines of wind and gusts, and if you peek up, like, although the lines of wind are not really there, and you have light actually also shining through the clouds. So you're being, it's less of an adrenaline ride in terms of speed and more of a sensory overload ride, which I actually liked it for that. Sensory overload for me was, maybe it'll be a little bit too jarring for someone for the first time, but then when you play it more and you appreciate, like, holy cow, I'm getting air blown at me and lights going here, and I'm looking this way. I didn't notice that power block over there before, and yeah, not to talk too long about just but that's just one thing. That's just how much there is to talk about just that little cloud section. And you could say that times like 5 other key moments in the ride. And that's just, it all comes together quite well.
I think that person you were talking about right there was basically me, where it is kind of overwhelming the first time, but there's so much happening. Like, you have a steering wheel that you can turn, or you can at least turn the wheel, even though it doesn't have a whole lot of effect on the race. Because it seems, as far as I can tell, when you turn, you can turn when it tells you to, and if you time it right, you get more coins for doing that, and the whole goal of this game is to get as many coins as possible. But yeah, it's throwing a lot at you. You got the physical sensations, you've got your controls, you've got, the fact that you're you're aiming items at the characters you're looking at. You actually look at them and the shell flies in that direction. You're collecting power-ups along the way. You've got like all these virtual elements happening, and there's just so much going on. It can be hard to even know what to focus on the first time. And I think for me, I did find it like overwhelming. Like there's so much to think about and focus on. Like I wasn't even able to enjoy it for what it was, especially because I think I was less impressed with the AR technology the first time because I was more drawn to its shortcomings, which are two key things. One, you can tell at points like, you know, the things being projected don't actually exist. Like for two reasons, but they're partially transparent, and two, they don't always line up perfectly with the environment. Like they kind of like shake around a little bit, especially for more stationary objects. For the things that are floating around, like the fireballs or lightning bolts, that's fine, but it stands out at points. And the other main issue is the AR goggles don't fully fill your actual field of vision. So for instance, you'll see like Mario race alongside you. You can literally see the point at which the screen's edge activates. So he's like cut off partially before he fully enters a frame. And that's a little weird. So the thing I found you try to focus on is one, when I rewrote it again, was to more focus on the characters. It helped me keep me more in the moment and less aware of like the limitations of the technology. And two is to kind of just keep looking ahead at the same time. Like focus less on what's around you and focus more on looking straight ahead. And I think once I was able to put myself more in that moment, that's when it really started coming alive and really started to feel more like I started to buy into more of what they were doing here. I was able to enjoy the ride far more as a result.
Yeah, I think when you understand, hey, I'm gonna go to the arcade and play a racing game. I'm going to play this racing game for like 6 minutes and try to get a top score. If you take that approach with this ride, I'm going to play an arcade racing game, just cranked up to 10. That's the kind of fun experience you're going to get, and not, I want to go on a fast ride.
I would say it's almost more of a shooting game at an arcade. And I think that's what really threw me off at first, is it really feels more like that than it does an actual racing game. As far as I can tell, like, you're not really, you are in a race, there are characters around you, you can shoot your opponents, the whole goal is to beat Bowser and his, and the minions, I guess, the Koopalings as well, but it never really feels like, it doesn't really feel like you're really competing with them too much, except at the very end. Otherwise, it really is just more about, like, looking for things around you that you can shoot, and I think that's what really threw me off, especially because your power-ups, which are almost, I think they're entirely shells the entire time, which is a little weird. You can run out of them, and I didn't even know that the first time. I'm like, why can I shoot things? Because you only get a set amount of shells whenever you hit an iron block on the course, and the only way to know how many shells you have left is by looking down, physically looking down. That's when your counter appears in your view, which is also weird. That's just not always present, or not having some way of always seeing without having to look down, which is a little awkward.
Yeah, I know what you mean. If you're not looking down, which looking down causes you to kind of lose, the visual of what's going on ahead. And if you're losing visual of what's going on ahead, you're going to not get in as much experience of all of that there is to see. So I guess you got to look down once in a while, because you don't want to overuse your shells, because, especially on multiple playthroughs, oh, that kind of like sub-boss is coming up right here, so I kind of need them. Or, oh, last time I missed that. I want to save some shells to hit that question mark block that was floating. So maybe having it like in that upper right-hand section or something like that of your lens wouldn't be a bad idea. But I also get the draw of, oh, you want to look in front of you and see something that's not really there, because that's an element of cool factor to it too. But it's deep. It's deep.
Once I started to get into that mindset of more just knowing what it was going for, which is like, hey, this is more of a shooter than it is a racing game. You just happen to be racing as the theme for it. I started to really just have a lot of fun with that, especially with how like all the course elements interact with the race part, and all the added effects you were mentioning. Like, I was blown away in that final Rainbow Road section. You have these cool, lighting effects happening, like, making it feel like you're going way faster than you actually are. And that's what the AR really helps with, too. Like, this isn't a fast-moving ride. At times, it actually feels like it could, the AR effects combined with the screens, combined with the movement of the car, they do a really good job of making it feel way more immersive than the ride videos people have probably seen. Those don't do the ride justice. Like, it feels faster than it actually is, even though you never for a moment will think you're on a ride like, the Cars ride at Disneyland. Like, it never feels that fast, but it definitely feels more energized than it looks in videos.
Yeah, they have a good, I peaked once in a while because having gone on it like several times now, I feel like now I can start experimenting more. Like, what is it like without this? And you just see how much attention to detail there is. Like in that Rainbow Road section you mentioned, there are thousands of LED strips lined up. And then when you put the AR, oh, they're using LEDs for this section, but over here it's not. It's just AR. And that combined with this flashing bit of light, and you're probably still going just like the 6 miles per hour. But
yeah, right.
Once you go through the screen, it almost feels like, whoa, you jumped up and landed. In reality, the ride was still stationary the whole time. It's not like it had a lip in a roller coaster or anything like that. Yet you felt like, oh, we actually got airborne for a moment because of all of the sensory stuff around you. And we didn't even talk about the haunted house portion.
God, this has to be one of the most impressive effects I've ever seen. This blew my mind. Like, I still don't know how they do it. Like, I was like, to your point, I was taking my goggles off specifically for this point, just to see if I could figure out how the heck this effect worked. But basically, they have a segment where you enter the haunted booze mansion, and then you see like the twisting roadway section from like Mario Kart 8, and it looks real. Like, it looks like this thing actually exists, but then like it collapses, and I don't know how it works. It might just be a screen for all I know, that perfectly syncs to your vehicle's position, but it is so darn convincing that like I feel like it has to be physical, but I just can't imagine how it actually is. And again, if it's just a simple screen, like my hat's off to them for making it look as good as it does, because it is perfect. Like it just blew my mind. Like that is one of the coolest effects I've ever seen in a ride. Period. Just because I don't know how it works.
Definitely, the cloth, or you think it's cloth, actually is warping around, and you're like, right. Is that carpet? Is that actual fabric? Is it AR? Is it this just perfect blend of AR plus physical texture and a screen? You know, LEDs running through it while there actually is some, animatronic elements to it. It's hard to say, but I don't think any footage has captured quite that like your eyes will.
Yeah, you cannot judge this ride based off videos. Yeah, it definitely is an experience.
If you're watching the video, you're thinking, oh, slower, but pretty stuff. It's much more than just that. It's pretty awesome. It feels like a very Nintendo-created experience. Maybe not even like a ride, but like a game or an experience, because there's elements to you're not in charge of accelerating. You can't make it go faster or slower, and that's kind of one thing. It was like, initially I wanted to be able to control my speed, because I understand it's going to be on a track. But there's the game element to, when it says turn properly. When it says turn properly. The times that we played it better, we didn't get hit by as many things. So I wonder if you have a perfect run, can you not get shocked by electricity, not get blown around in the whirlwind, not get turned on fire? Like, probably. So that gives me more incentive that even though I've played it half a dozen times, I want to play more and try to, can I get like 200 coins instead of the 140 or 120? But there's a gamer incentive to it.
Yeah, it's weird to describe a ride that has depth. Like, this is a ride with high replayability, because you're not going to be able to master it your first time, second time, even fifth time through. Like, we rode it literally 5 times in 2 days, and we still don't know everything about this ride. And that is impressive. Like, the fact that we were not only having fun, we were getting better at it, we're better understanding the mechanics. And I think, again, that's partially why my first ride through with it wasn't that fun, because it was kind of confusing. Like, there's 4 people per cart, you all have steering wheels, so inherently it doesn't make sense. Like, how are we all steering? And then you realize, you're not actually steering at all, you're just getting coins for steering at the right time. And so once that makes a little bit more sense, you're able to more focus on the fact that the primary thing is just looking where you want to shoot and shooting the enemies. And I was able to better appreciate how the Mario Kart mechanics played into that. Again, how you actually pick up item boxes on the field that replenishes your shell count, and that's primarily what you use to interact with things, and that's all neat. I do think, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, I wish they had given you more items to use, though. Like, you basically have green shells the entire time, except at the very end when you get a star for Rainbow Road. I think it would have been cool, for instance, during the segment where you're fighting the giant Bowser statue, why not give us bombs then, or something? Give us a different item to battle him with, instead of just the same green or red shells.
As you were saying that, I thought exactly. That's why I just put this on real quick. What if this also gave you the access to throw fireballs? Or like you said, throw
fireballs
bombs.
was perfect, yeah.
that would have been a really cool inclusion if they could find a way to make it work. Like maybe if you look at your power band through the AR lens, this is Mario's white glove that's on fire or something like that. Like that would be a neat idea. And probably some of these ideas that we have, I mean, Nintendo, you should be watching right now, right? I mean, you are probably watching, let's be honest. But future implementation. And since a lot of it is AR, kind of to go into that section, they could probably, categorize it differently. Like if it's Halloween, more of a Luigi's Mansion kind of vibe to it. Some new games coming out, they could probably swap out this character model of Mario and have him be, Cat Mario riding in the cart. And this is all hypotheticals, speculation talk, but it really is a neat, get good at a ride. How many rides do you get good at?
Yeah,
there are some rides out there that exist that you play, but this is perhaps the most, demanding that you actually play while riding.
I'll be fully honest. I'm generally not a huge fan of the shooting gallery type game, type rides at theme parks, like Buzz Lightyear or Midway Mania, or even the new Spider-Man ride at Disneyland, or Men in Black at Universal Orlando at least. I enjoy them, but I ride it once per trip. I'm like, I'm good, I'm done. I think because there is no thrill factor typically. They're slow paced. Once you do it once, you kind of get the overall feel of it. And the fact that Mario Kart pulled me back 4 more times says a lot. And again, this is coming from an initial point of disappointment with it to really having a great time by the end. And I think once you appreciate that, it's just really kind of like a gamified ride. It's actually a really good time, and I think the best example I've seen of this. And it's a unique sensation that you can't get anywhere else, because you're not just looking at 3D screens or simple props. Like the way it merges the real sets with these virtual fake elements, these AR elements rather, which really kind of feels more like VR at points, is so freaking cool. And you were touching on earlier, where you took your visor off at points to kind of see the difference. The difference is profound, and once you really find yourself immersed in that, when you're not distracted by the limits of the technology, it's just a really impressive ride. And my only hope is that as AR technology improves, I hope that they upgrade this ride. If they can expand that field of vision so it's even more comprehensive for the AR, that'd be amazing. But even for right now, it's super impressive. But of course, I'm sure more AR rides will come down the line, and I hope Mario Kart can keep up with them, because it'd be a shame if it falls behind at the technology front.
Yeah, I agree. Good thoughts.
There is, I think, one other point I wanted to bring up, which I think might have been why I was a little disappointed. I think it's something that they could still do better, and that is, for as amazing as the queue is, and actually, I'm going to break this up a little bit. The queue is amazing for this ride. Did we touch on this already? I don't think we did in this video, right?
No.
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah, I want to talk about this. The queue is so freaking good. Almost the entirety of Super Nintendo World feels like a setup for this ride, where you have Bowser's Castle, you enter it through his gaping giant Bowser face statue thing. But even before that, they had this really cool Yoshi segment, which doesn't exist in Japan, because they got a dedicated ride there, so they kind of reincorporated that into the lineup for Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. And it's so adorable, it's so cute. You go up through these, you go through this dark cavern filled with crystals, and it's just beautiful. But then you have this really beautiful pastel-looking Yoshi's story segment, where you see Yoshi's jumping around, they're on screens, but they tie into the world, so it doesn't look like you're looking at screens too much. But you see Yoshi interact, you see them eating enemies. It's all adorable, as you hear adorable Yoshi's story music playing at the same time too. It's so cute.
Definitely.
And of course that continues once you actually enter the Bowser's Castle portion, where you have what might be one of the most detailed queues I've ever seen, especially at this point. Every detail ties into the Mario universe. It all feels meaningful. It's either a reference to something, or is a fun Easter egg in and of itself, or just a cool detail that gives more lore. You pass through Bowser's library at points, which is filled with books. Each one has a title that references some kind of Mario game or element. There's one called I think Inside Story, which of course references Bowser's Inside Story on 3DS or DS rather. And then there's a factory portion where you can see Mecha Koopas and bombs being built, and that's so cool. That adds lore to the universe of oh, these things are actually built by Bowser. And what's really cool is they have this amazing technology. It's almost like a lenticular type thing, where you're passing by the screens that show how the things are being built. it has actual depth. Like your perspective changes, and you can see like everything looking three-dimensional. And that blew my mind. Like that was like a 3DS screen that's almost more impressive because it works with everyone in the area, like everyone watching the screen.
Yeah, the fact that it had different layers of depth, no matter where you were getting a different level, different experience, and I thought that was really cool. And also, you might have noted it, maybe not, but I know we've talked about it when we were in line. Well, our line of 2 people as we got to go take our time through it.
That was a perk.
They had these little sections of like a boo coming in and going out, and it didn't look like it was on a screen, but not quite a projector either. So a sophisticated use of LEDs and maybe Nintendo magic. That's the best way to probably describe it. All throughout this place. And everything was just so architecturally well built. Everything had a different texture to it. Bowser's chair was massive. The posters of Princess Peach, that he has in his observatory. That observatory itself. Remember we walked by this almost like what you would want to have your Mario Kart tour experience be, made out of cardboard, like that little section.
It's like a mock-up of a racetrack. It's amazing.
I would want that to be in my house to play Mario Kart Tour in, and then that's just it's a Mario Kart level. They should sell that as Mario Kart Labo.
Yeah, I'd buy it. It was so cool.
And build it.
Yep.
It's so cool. And every spine of the book, it just details.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
There's just so much to look at here. Like, if you're a Nintendo fan, like, it's made for you. If you're not a Nintendo fan, I could say it maybe not being quite as impressive, but as one, it's like one of the best cues I've ever seen, because I'm like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that's how that was built. Oh, Boo's here interacting with things. It was so freaking cool. And we didn't even mention the giant Bowser statue you pass to when you first enter it as well. Like, super impressive in this massive scale Bowser presence. It's
giant.
Love it. My only real complaint about the queue is I wish it had points of interaction. For like a theme park still built about interacting with things, the fact that the queue, as far as I'm aware, has nothing to actually play around with itself by touching it is a little disappointing. So I wish they had done more with that. But my other complaint about isn't really so much the queue as it is the pre-show, and that's the fact that the pre-show sucks. It's barely even a pre-show. So what happens is before you get on the ride, you end up in a room where you have there's multiple screens with Lakitu on one of them explaining how the ride actually works. And the thing is, though, he doesn't explain it well, because he's talking in his Lakitu gibberish, just making random sounds, with what he's saying being translated into text on the screen as you watch these simple animations. And it ends up just feeling like a loading screen of tips. And I hate this. Because it's boring. I don't think most people are even going to pay attention to it, so if you don't, it's confusing when you go on the ride to understand like how it actually works. But second is, there's no setup. There's really no story here. The only story is the letter in the queue showing the letter that Bowser sent Mario, inviting him to a race for whatever reason, because he wants to challenge him in a race. It's stupid, it's paper thin, and what I really love about rides in general is how they characterize things, or they give us a new side of something that we hadn't seen before, and we don't get that here. We don't see Mario or Bowser interact at all. The only interactions we see are on the ride itself in the same form we already do in Mario Kart, and I was hoping we would get them like talking to us or taunting each other or something, some kind of story and setup. That'd be fun. So, like, for example, I went on the newish Spider-Man ride at Disneyland, and they have a great setup for that ride. I'm not a huge fan of the ride itself, but the setup is Peter Parker is talking to you as the audience, the actual actor, I forget his name, talking to you. It's funny, it's cute, it sets it up, it ties it all together. Mario Kart does not have that, and I wish they had added more story. There's no more story here than an actual Mario Kart game, and that's where they could have done it so much better. So I feel like that was a complete letdown.
Yeah, I'm almost like reading these directions of up and down, and I'd rather be a little bit more immersed in it. And they could use that as a story. Bowser could be telling you something.
Yeah,
Mario and a little bit more probably.
Yeah, I was just surprising how much they dropped the ball in that sense, because like I feel like when it actually opens to the public, I could be off base. I feel like most people aren't even going to pay attention to what's going on in that room, because they're either going to be distracted by the details, or they're going to be talking among themselves or on their phone. It's just boring. They should have had that's where you set up the story. That's where you set up how the game plays. Like, well, yeah, like you were touching on, like we should have Bowser be like, we should see Bowser like verbally invite Mario to the race or whatever. Then we have Mario like show up, explain to us how we need to play, you know, how we actually need to race, as you were saying, and that will work so much better. And add more character to the ride. And yeah, I think that honestly will help me enjoy it more the first time. Like, better build up, explain how it works, and I think I will have enjoyed it a lot more knowing all of that. So, I you know, maybe they'll upgrade in the future. I doubt it, considering Japan's has been open for a couple years at this point, or over a year at this point, and they haven't done it there. So, we'll see. Paul, any final thoughts before we give our overall verdict on Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge, our overall score on this ride?
If you love video games, and if Nintendo has been a good portion of your video game life, and you enjoy the Mario Kart franchise, whether a little bit or a lot, I think the ride is a must experience, because the queue is incredible, and the ride is immersive, and there's a very high level of fun factor. But I almost want to say, experience it more than once, because you could love it the first time, or you could like it incrementally more so each time, but absolutely worth it in my opinion. I enjoyed it.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's definitely, if you're a Nintendo fan and a theme park fan, or either or some combination of those two, definitely check out Bowser's Challenge, the Mario Kart ride, because it is truly something special. It is something in the sense that you're not going to find this anywhere else. I mean, Paul, you were there with me. You saw me go from someone who really didn't like the ride at all initially, to really coming around and be like, okay, this is actually pretty good, because it is something different. I still think it could be improved. I wish the pre-show were better. I wish it had a story. I wish it had a little more characterization. But aside from that, once you get on, it's a total blast. Even if you're not aiming for a high score, like, I just had fun shooting things. You know, I just had fun, like, you know, looking for the secrets. And also just, like, enjoying the sights, you know, whether it's, like, getting blooped and sucked into the ocean, or encountering that amazing staircase or twirling path effect in the Boo's Mansion, or the lightning storm in the sky, or going down Rainbow Road again, which is so cool, especially because I like how, you know, we've touched on this. This whole ride is extremely interactive to a point that I don't think any other ride has been, at least as one as thrilling as this, even if it's not a thrill ride. But it definitely feels, you know, I will say too, for as much as I was surprised by how much of a game it is still also a ride too, and I like that. It is still a much more of a ride than most of the shooting gallery type rides we've seen, and I appreciate that too, to the point that there are parts that actually do feel pretty thrilling, like the Rainbow Road segment, especially with how that really does tie into the end of the ride, where this is your final chance to shoot down Bowser and his and the Koopalings, and if you can pull out ahead of them and you can win the race, and that is pretty cool. That is a part that feels the most thrilling, the most race-like, where you're like, it's down to the wire, I'm shooting my final shot, literally trying to take out these guys and get ahead and hopefully win the race. And at the end you get like a little ceremony if you won or lost, and that's really cool.
That is cool.
So this might be a good time though to get to our scores, our overall scores for this ride based on the GameXplain scale. Paul, what do you give Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge?
I give it a loved it.
Loved it. All right.
Yeah, I would go on it again. Like, I'm not done. I want to do better, and I don't think you have to like play it with the only incentive of, oh, I need to do better. I can't, like, you could stink at it and still have a fun time, because it is fun and engaging. You're doing a lot of stuff, but you almost need a couple of times to play it to appreciate just what you can do. You might not know what you can do. What can you achieve in it? And that's incentive to play more, I think. But you don't have to feel like you did a good job to have fun.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head really well right there. I think something that sets this ride apart from other shooting gallery type rides is it's fun to even not play. Like, you could sit there and have a good time just enjoying the ride for what it is purely, without even shooting or steering at all. Steering again in quotes, but they don't really steer the car at all at any point. Whereas, like, if you're on Midway Mania or Buzz Lightyear, that'd be way less engaging if you're not actively playing it. Whereas I think with Mario Kart, you still have a pretty good time. So for me, my verdict is, I honestly started as mixed. I think it was just so out of alignment with what my expectations were, I wasn't able to appreciate it. But once I started going on it, once I couldn't, be disappointed the second time, I really came around. And it got me all the way up to just below loved it. I liked it a lot. I think it's a really good ride. A lot of fun. Very unique. I think there are still areas for improvement. Things like improving the pre-show. Please, God, fix that pre-show. Make it more fun. Make it a better, give it a story, and make it so people actually know. It actually teaches them how to play in a engaging way. Also, when it comes to the ride itself, I think it's almost perfectly fine as is. Things that would improve. More item variety, like if you let us use bombs, for instance, during the Bowser segment, as we mentioned earlier, that'd be a lot of fun. I think that would really make it a little bit more engaging. And 2, if they can improve the AR technology even more beyond what they have in the future, I would appreciate that. But for what it is, still very impressive. I had a blast, and it's a lot of fun. So, hey, if I ride it 5 more times, maybe it'll get up to a loved eventually. Right now, though, it's liked a lot. So, I think that's going to do it for our review of Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. Everyone, thank you for watching. Of course, stay tuned for our upcoming review of, if it's not already up, I don't know what order we're posting this in, but our full review of Super Nintendo World in general, where we'll go everything else we can do here, including the food, the mini games, including Bowser's Jr. Showdown, and everything else that you can do here. There's a lot, so we'll be back with that soon enough. Everyone, thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.